A very good afternoon to all. This is Jatin Luthra from the Office of GSAS India Secretariat. Would like to welcome you all to the first ever round of webinar on resilience in time of pandemic by our Business Resilience Council team and also called as BRC. Well, BRC was found in the year 2021, which is a platform driving one of our Council of Excellence called Business Continuity and Disaster Management. Well, with an objective to support the larger community by sharing expertise and exchange knowledge in this domain. Well, today we have Mr. Sandeep Singh Duggal, who is part of BRC founding team, who will share more insights on the overall objectives and a roadmap, along with Mr. Praveen Upadhyay, who is also a chapter leader for Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and he has been a key contributor in the successful journey of GSAS. Well, I would also like to thank our keynote speakers, Mr. Dhirendra Kumar, for accepting our invitation and help us in spreading knowledge in regards to sustaining business in the current environment. On that note, I would first like to quickly touch upon a few important aspects of GSAS as an association. In this large corporate service domain, GSAS offers advisory, advocacy, and expertise to our members by supporting initiatives and creating business infrastructure through global reach, professional networking, thought leadership, and industry influential programs, focusing on our 8 pillars, also called as Council of Excellence, which are travel services, hospitality, sustainability, risk mitigation, security investigation, project management, business continuity and disaster management, corporate social responsibility, facility management and transport operations, and finally, procurement and sourcing. Well, with a member base of 6,200 plus professionals across India and foreign, we have 12 chapters in India and 6 in other countries. Well, we truly believe in our members, and thus it becomes our responsibility to create such platforms which can benefit them through various programs and initiatives. Industry articles, research papers, and knowledge workshops are the key drivers in sharing knowledge. But under the crisis support, the team of passionate leaders gather current job openings from across domain and chapters and circulate to our members in form of industry opening, which allows them to apply as per their desire. Well, Partner Support Program is a digital exhibition program, which gives an opportunity to the vendor community to showcase their products and services straight to our members. Last but not the least, Knowledge Conclave is one of its kind platforms for not just sharing knowledge, but also network within the professional across domain, which all happen under one umbrella. Above all this, GSAS as an association is proud in creating such environment with utmost ethical behavior followed under the guidance of ethics and governance team. Well, on that note, I would like to again thank you everyone for your support. And now I'll request Mr. Sandeep Singh to take it further, please. Over to you, Mr. Sandeep.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today for the interactive session on resilience. A brief introduction about Business Resilience Council and purpose and objective. So as my colleague Jatin has talked about what GAGS does as an organization, and we are an industry body. So we have a tower which talks about resilience. So the ask was to understand how it is important and what we can do as an organization to support our colleagues in different organizations during the planning of any such incident or during a resilience kind of atmosphere like we are going through like now COVID-19 pandemic. So natural and man-made disasters are becoming a major concern for all corporates. To safeguard their investment assets and people for corporates is very important. So that's why we trying to bridge this gap of understanding, learning, and awareness from that perspective. Corporates are looking for resilient solutions, so an infrastructure to conduct business operation without any interruptions to achieve their local and global goals of uninterrupted supply chains. That's one of the key asks these days. Objective of BRC is to provide expertise, service, and technologies to larger community and bring value for the industry in the domain of resilience. by various initiatives, including these webinars, trainings, and awareness and consulting. BRC scope adding value in larger community. So we are not only restricted to corporate, so we want to do it for the community also, where we want to extend our initiative to community, where we can train our community workers and for any disaster situation and like that. So first step is disaster risk reduction. From corporate perspective, identification of corporate industrial risk, both natural and man-made. From community perspective, it is identification of risk, both natural and man-made, applicable to a particular region. Disaster mitigation, plan to deal with above risks. From corporate perspective, community, plan and build infrastructure to deal with above risk, including understanding guidelines of National Disaster Management Authority. Capability building, training and identifying who will do what at the time of disaster within corporate and industry. Training of people, coordination with various agencies during the time of disaster, like earthquake or there is a attack, war-like situation, or multiple things which we are not habitual of. So how people should react in that, even during an evacuation in fire drill, we are focused on training them. So disaster response, practical training, exposure of how things work, including role of authorities, working with various, from community perspective, working with various agencies to save life of common people. So that's our primitive motive. Relief and rehabilitation, recovery back to normal in corporate sense. From community perspective, it is reaching out to impacted, arrange relief material, help in rehabilitation, kind of a corporate social responsibility. Work with government in framing policies related to disaster management, understanding working of various agencies who can help during disaster. From corporate perspective, including addition of some services which needs to be there in essential services, which have been talked about and which ITITS got it during pandemic, and participate as group and association within community during community relief and awareness. I would like to briefly introduce our key members who are the founding members of this pillar of GACS, BRC. So Abha P. Kale graduated in mechanical engineering and has acquired specialization in stream engineering from MS Forbes Marshall, Pune. Experience of over 2 decades, served in various capacities from planning, project and application engineering, system design and testing of insulating material and system. Shri IP Singh Gujral, qualified cost accountant, having experience of more than 29 years in various finance processes, transition and facility functions, leading facilities in one of the known FMCG company and involved in many sustainability initiatives. Passionate about knowing, sharing and coaching the next generation. Praveen Upadhyay, over 3 decades of experience in managing infrastructure and logistics with large global service delivery organizations and supporting their IT service operations of delivery centers with customer touchpoints. Postgraduate in economics and certified professional in Six Sigma Green Belt, business continuity management and internal auditor for EMS and OSHAs. Pravesh Kada is also chief of BRC Tower, 19 years of qualitative experience in various command, staff and operational appointments within the army and major corporates. In the armed forces, he has been involved in operational roles in counterinsurgency areas and various other staff duties, specializing in security upgradation projects ranging from airports, metro to soft targets like temples and hospitals. About me, I am a seasoned professional with more than 15 years of experience in resilience and risk portfolio, working with various BFSI organization and service industry. Moving to our today's speaker, a recognized leader with more than 20 years of experience. He has provided directions, subject matter advice, guidance, and counsel to his clients on various risk domains for designing and maintaining a secure. He has been valued for thought leadership, technical and business-centric approach to provide advisory services. He is currently working as a director cyber for one of the global Big Four consulting firm. In the past, Dhirendra has worked with organizations like Barclays, ANZ, Ranbaxy in senior leadership roles such as Head of Cyber Resilience, Data Privacy, Technology Risk, Operational Resilience, and Supplier Risk. He has led many global transformational projects and helped to improve the cybersecurity posture, control environment, and embedding the risk culture. He has been recognized by many industry awards in cybersecurity, data privacy, and organized resilience. Today's topic, which Dhiren is going to cover, is on cyber resilience.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to check, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Jatin, and thank you, Karan, for a wonderful session. I think this is something very basic when we say as part of our overall resilience, readiness, people safety aspect of it. And but these are some of the nuances which you have touched upon today. We, as a professionals, also we are not able to pick up those into our overall planning. So thank you for a great session. With this, I think I'm moving into the other extreme side of the resilience, where we talk about from the cyber aspect of it. So before I talk about cyber resilience, I think just thought to share my understanding or see overall view on the organizational resilience element of it. So one we start our BCM journey. It's basically we pick up those things which is from the criticality of the business and how we are going to recover if there is any disruption, fire, earthquake, or any kind of IT disruption is there. However, if you see from the holistic aspect perspective, and we have experienced in past, if we consider the current pandemic situation, many of the BCM plans or most of the organizations I have or the professionals I have talked to, they have told that their BCM plans were not really fully supportive of this particular situation, because this is something unprecedented. Nobody have actually thought of the disruption will happen to that particular period, or there is even the multi-geo strategies are not really working because it is at the global level and all. So many of those aspects are not we have considered when we say a resilience planning in our organization. So there are three key pillars. One is from the financial resilience standpoint, which is more from the perspective when we have seen in a pandemic situation when some of the payments from our clients have been stopped due to XYZ reason, their systems are not operational or the people are not working in the organizations or many other reasons. So how the organizations have actually have a planning part of their resilience, whether they have considered financial planning, resilience element in their overall planning or not. That's one part. We are not going to touch more on that. The second one, which most of us are familiar with, is the operational resilience, which is covering the people, supply chain, technology, premises, and cyber element of it. And the third one is the commercial resilience. Just a brief on commercial resilience is more to say that when such kind of a situation is there, do we have a process in place to ensure that what are the products or the services we have to stop providing and only focus on our core market product or services, which will keep us float or keep the organization survive that particular period. So these are the three pillars. I'm going to talk about a bit more on the cyber side of it today, which is under the operational resilience. So what is cyber resilience? There are many definitions which talks about on the cyber resilience side of it. But one of the definition which I have picked up here also, and I see that it's really covering many aspects of it, is the organization's ability to prepare for, detect, respond, and recover from a cyber event with the minimum negative impact on critical business services, regulatory conflict, and any reputational impact. So this is something which is from the cyber resilience standpoint. if there is any cyber incident experienced by the organization, how is that impacted for the overall readiness to bounce back or to really come back to the critical business operations from people, technology, and process standpoint, how we have covered that part of it. So that's the cyber resilience element. This is just to give a sense of it. Cyber events today. I really don't have to tell much here. There is all over in the news. Every second day we are getting some news of some of the cyber incidents impacting one organizations at a very, very large scales and really disrupting not only that particular organization, because we work in a connected world, and that particular cyber incident will have an impact to the entire supply chain of that particular organization. So that certainly is not something which is a kind of a thought that when it will happen to us, or if it will happen to us. It will certainly happen to, or already have been touched our organization in some shape and form. The only question is we may not have picked up that, or we have not really detected that in our organization unless it has really made a big impact or disruption to our organization. So just a brief view on what are the motives when there is a cyber attack happen to any organization. It can be driven by any motive. You can't really pinpoint on one. It could be financial gain, it could be intellectual or R&D kind of a data, it could be just fun. Many of the cyber criminals or those who are new to this field, they just try their skills and be kind of a make their brand in the cyber criminal fraternity, that they have brought down that particular network down, or they have really breached into a large organization network. That could be another motive for them. And the other thing may be ransom. We all have heard this particular term now, ransom. So when they can actually go back and kind of ransom on the data they have access of the organization, they can really ask for ransom from the organization. So it could be any kind of a motive, but the impact will be much more in terms of how the organizations are going to survive that. It could really have an impact such as survivability of the organization. We have in the past, there are many examples where many of the organizations could not really come back of any cyber incident because the data they have lost is really, without that data, they can't really bring back to their business or stand up to their business. They have to really go out of the business because there is no data available to them for the organization. So that's something which is probably coming up as a very important key component when we talk about from the overall organization resilience standpoint. It is today a larger impact on the brand as well as trust to our customers. So if the customers are not really feeling that the organizations can provide continuous services to them in case of any cyber incident, their data is safe in their organizations, they are not going to do a business again, or they will not be a customer to that. They always look for other options where they have a better assurance of providing continuity of the services, protection of their data. That will become into picture. So that's certainly a key element when we talk about in today's scenario, how the cyber incident are really driving the overall resilience posture of the organization. I just want to talk about on the key features. Sandeep, just keep me honest on the time, how we're doing on the time, so that I can cover those elements.
Yeah, we have 15 minutes, then you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So what are the key drivers? Why the organizations really look into the aspect of cyber resilience and why it is important? As we all know that it can, if something has happened to our organizations, it will have a much better turnaround time to really bring that particular mitigation in place. So if there is a cyber incident happened in your organization, certainly cyber resilience will have could be one of the driving that incident is a driving factor to actually embed the cyber resilience in your overall resilience program. This could also be driven by the regulators. If you see today, many of the regulators have actually started calling out very categorically on the cyber resilience or cyber crisis management plan in place. RBI also do have that kind of a requirement when they have in a BFSI industry. But if we see from the other industry standpoint, we may not be very mature when we talk about from the cyber resilience. But the important aspect is today the cyber incident is not really only impacting BFSI industry or the banks of the type of organizations. We have incident at a very large scale like Ukraine power shutdown, which is got impacted. Probably 3/4 of the country was down. The power supply was not available, and I think all of us are aware of that particular incident, which is a trigger of a kind of a cyber incident, compromise their OT network and power infrastructure, which they could probably take more than 48 hours to bring it partially recover that particular kind of a setup. So it's no more limited to the industry, but it certainly be an area where all industries need to look at. Otherwise, the impact is too high, and for a very reason, because today all the organizations are having technology is the key driver for their businesses. The adoption of technology is happening in a very rapid pace, and during that particular adoption, the cybersecurity element, if it has not been captured or taken into consideration when the overall adoption of the technology is happening, it will really bring more vulnerabilities. And in the overall scheme of things, there will be weaknesses if we talk about from the cyber resilience standpoint. So certainly there are many other key drivers. It could be, but the important thing is how often the organizations or how proactively the organizations can pick this as part of their overall planning as well as the resilience program. So these are the key elements, I would say. I think when we talk about the typical way of business continuity management, we certainly have not taken into the cyber element into the planning. The IT disruption is certainly a part of the overall planning, but cyber component, still many organizations are not mature to that level where they can bring or integrate the cyber resilience program into their overall resilience program. Today, many organizations, or most of the organizations, I would say that, are still working in silos. The BCM team or resilience team take care of those typical kind of disruptions, which is like fire, maybe earthquake, maybe IT, DR disruption, technology disruptions. But the cyber incidents or the disruption due to cyber weaknesses is not proactively incorporated in the overall program. And that is the key component when you have to say that unified security crisis response. We need to build up that capability in the organization so that if any kind of a disruption happens, whether it's a cyber or it's a fire or it's the earthquake or it's the IT or whatever is the source of that particular disruption, do we have a unified security crisis response mechanism in place which will trigger the process? And once it reaches to that level, crisis level, then it is a unified process which gets kicked in, and the process will be, or the overall crisis will be managed according to that. That is something of missing component today in today's program, with many organizations are running on that. However, there is a cybersecurity security teams or program which work in again silo, looking into many aspects of it from the cybersecurity aspect of it, but they will not have the holistic view how it gets managed if it leads to a crisis situation. They still manage it more as a incident response or incident management process, but the integration of that cyber incident response to a crisis management program is still missing. And these are some of the components, not many of the some organizations, depending upon the organization's maturity, may have these right hand side components embedded in their program, but the integration is something which probably not been picked up. And when we say the cyber resilience, it's not only the IT team, it is also from the people and change perspective. It could also be a risk management team, how they can contribute in the overall cyber resilience program. When we talk about the risk management team, do they have a process of, say for example, issue management? Any issue which is coming out from a cyber incident or for their normal risk management process, if we can standardize that approach, there will be a better governance from the incident resolution standpoint or issue management process standpoint. So that's something which is probably something which the industry, across the industry, this is something growing up, but it's a lot more to do in terms of really bringing it to a level where we can say we are moving towards our organization resilience component standpoint. Just a few thoughts on cyber risk in today's pandemic situation. What we have experienced in the last couple of years, there are many phishing attacks which is triggered by the cyber criminals because they ride upon the sentiments and the information flow in the wider audience perspective and try to make use of that for their own benefit. So we have experienced in past, there's a lot of phishing attacks which is themed towards COVID-19 because it becomes more real or related to vaccination news and stuff like that. It is more that people or the will fall for it because that is something happening in their mind and they will click it. And once they click it, their systems or their devices will get compromised and they may pass on some critical data, have access to those kind of cyber criminals. The other aspect is that adoption of remote working. All of that was the need of the hour, and all of us, for that matter, have actually adopted the remote working mechanism. And it was more of a tactical solutions, not really a more strategic, because the turnaround time was so low. They have many of those normal process of risk and control was overlooked and allowed to actually put it into the system. That has really is also something which needs to be looked at, how those remote access or remote working capabilities have been having proper controls in place or not. And this has really increased the threat landscape for the organization. So you can imagine a pre-COVID or pre-COVID situation is the organizations will have a boundary where they have a very few users who will have a remote access, and they can manage that well and with the proper rules and controls in place. But when the entire organizations, more than 70-80% of the organizations are really working remotely, and many organizations, 100% people are working remotely, whatever the process they have put in place, there's a lot of deliberation required, there's a lot of changes required to bring the same level of control environment to this new landscape for the organizations. So those are the key another challenges which the organizations are facing. Another aspect, I'll give you an example where the authorization of any kind of payroll or any finance teams was happening, and but from remote aspect of it, when the approval needs to be given, there might be some sort of changes in the process, and many of these cyber criminals, they can actually make use of that kind of a change where authentication authorization may have compromised, and they can provide probably not a relevant transaction get really got approved, and there will be a possibility of a fraud in that kind of a scenario. So this is something which is happened in past, which is also happening. The only thing is how we can actually bring this cyber risk element, and this will continue happening. Whatever the controls we will put into the place, the criminals will find two more new ways of actually getting penetrated or getting the system compromised. So that's something which will happen, where the role of a resilience, cyber resilience, will become even more important, because nobody will say that this is 100% now we are secure. The controls which we have put in will really give us 100% security. There is nothing called 100% security. There will be a situation when the system will get compromised. There will be a cyber incident, and how those kind of crisis situation will be managed needs to be looked into from the cyber resilience standpoint. Supplier is another area where many organizations really have a very robust plan in place before the COVID situation. But again, like most of the organizations have adopted the remote working, their suppliers and third parties also have adopted the same thing. And that has again opened a lot of vulnerabilities for the organizations, which they can have a better controlled or vulnerability management program in place. But now they have to ensure that whether the third parties who have access to their network or to the data, do they have sufficient controls in place or not. So these are some of the aspect challenges which will lead to that whatever the controls we will put in, and that is important from the overall cyber program perspective. But this is also true that one or the other day there will be some compromise, and the cyber crisis situation will emerge. We need to be ready how proactively we can have a cyber resilience into our overall resilience program in place. So I have, kind of a thought, and which I have spoken to many of my colleagues or industry connects. This is something, this question comes up again, that how many of the resilience professionals today have a role in a cyber incident management situation? And the answer which I get is very few. It's still a very silo thing. It will only be once the things have happened, it will more of a coordination activity. But the active role of managing cyber incident through a crisis management process is still not very mature in most of the organization. So as a resilience professionals, we all have to see that how we can actually understand the overall cyber program of the organization, and then try to embed that how the crisis management process can be overseen or over as a holistic program or process in place to manage a cyber incident situation. So that's, I think with this, I'll stop here, but happy to take any specific question, or I'll hand over back to Jatin and Sandeep.
Thanks, Dhiren, for the wonderful session and insightful on cyber risk in pandemic. One question, what is the significance of cyber resilience in this pandemic, in COVID, what you have seen and the cases, what you were mentioning? Do you think the risk has deepened during this pandemic while we are working from home?
Yes, I think as I mentioned, if you see, not only, globally, there are many such drives have been done by the cyber criminals by raising these. So by really having these phishing attacks, which is very targeted for the people and the organizations. I can share an incident, which is like from the one of the organizations who are doing the research related to the COVID-19 vaccine, and the information which was compromised has actually delayed the overall delivery, or so to say, the closure of that particular vaccine information, and they cannot really release the information for getting that vaccine registered in the authorities, and hence the overall delay of bringing that particular into the market. So if we see that, it looks like, okay, they can access to the information, but in any kind of a situation, data is the new oil, is the slogan many people will use, and that's true. If the data got compromised for the situations like, or the industry which is pharmaceutical, or for this particular R&D level, if they cannot rely on their data, they cannot move forward. They cannot really put a step forward to say that, yes, this is our data. And if it is compromised, it will really have a much larger global impact on the safety of the people. So this is just an example saying that if we do not have a cyber security or the data security in place, it will lead to a much bigger crisis situation to manage. And it is important to really bring proactively those controls in place and integrate it into the overall resilience program to manage it effectively.
Indeed, sir. Indeed. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. I would request Praveen sir for his note while we conclude the session.
I have Sandeep, can I ask one question?
Yeah, please.
So Dhiren, a quick question from my side, and this is probably from the resilience fraternity. Like you mentioned that a lot of resilience professionals are not involved while considering the cyber attacks and cyber incidents, basically, and that is only majorly because of the thing that a majority of the cyber incidents do not get reported because of the impact that it creates on the brand, the companies and all, a lot of them. So
yeah,
the query is that first is the curiosity of like how many actually in percentages would not get reported vis-a-vis how many would get reported. And the second thing is, what is a good practice that you have seen in the industry which the resilience professionals from our community should follow, so that they also get included, as well as they also highlight how they can help out in these kind of situations.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the question. Wonderful question. I think it touched upon many aspects of it. So first one is on the how many incidents gets reported. So that's $1 million question. I would say on a lighter note that only incident which you cannot hide that get reported. If you can hide it, many organizations, if it really not driven by the regulatory requirements, the organizations may not have a mechanism in place to report it. And as you rightly said, that it will have a very adverse impact on the brand. So organizations try to manage it internally, then unless it is really driven by the regulatory requirement to report it within that timely fashion. So the industries who are regulated one will have a higher percentage of compliance. I would not say it is very high, but it still have some percentage of compliance when they have to report it to the authorities. Industries who are not really of any under regulation, supervision, they hardly report it unless it is already out of their hand. It gets into the into the wider world anyway. So they will start then kind of report it or talk about that, how they are managing it, aspect of it. Second question of it is basically when you mention that what are the best practices, how we can actually be as a resilience professionals, what are the things we need to look into the aspect of it. So I think first important aspect, which I have gone through that journey in my career, where I do have the technology background, but I was also head of resilience for one of the global bank, where the same thing which I mentioned as silos were there, and it's not easy to really break those silos. It is important and easy, or probably I would say the best thing to move forward in that direction is to really see how the crisis management process is coming up. When you get into the cyber security domain, there is a specific teams, there is a specific owners, and not every time they will really be open to actually share what is happening in that particular space. But the easier way to get into that and understand that what are the controls is more from the crisis management perspective. One of the aspect is certainly pick up one cyber resilience, or I would say exercise for cyber resilience scenario. So pick up a scenario where you say that there is a ransomware attack, and let's evaluate how as an organizations we are going to respond to that. This particular scenario you need to have those as your key stakeholders and participant, where the cybersecurity owners will tell you what are the controls they have in place, what are the things we need to do it, and that will be a good starting point to really understand the controls and gaps. Also, when you come up with that or develop and deliver that exercise, there will be 10 things which comes out as a gap, and that would be a starting point to really start building up your multiple scenarios and seeing that. See, as a resilience professional, we don't want to, and we will not be able to go into the operational aspect of cybersecurity. But at a holistic level, you need to start getting how the cyber crisis situation or this cyber incident can impact the organizations and lead to a crisis situation, and how, as a crisis BCM professional, you will manage that. That's the 2 cents from my side.
Thank you so much, Dhiren.
Praveen sir, would you like to conclude with a note?
Yeah, hi, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Fantastic. Wow, what a session. So it is prudent to say that business resilience is not a milestone, but a journey to manage natural and man-made disasters. Actually, we'll have to keep investing our efforts, time, money, resources to build our effective capability to respond to any crisis. There are various processes involved to make a business resilience plan effective. There's like identify the risk, assess it, create a mitigation plan to maintain BCP, deal with the situation and respond practically to the situation, support to recover from disaster to normalcy. Believe me, that is not that easy, it seems, but requires enormous amount of practice and planning behind the scenes. There are various aspects, key role in the entire disaster situation management, like perception, panic or fear, timely common sense, as I heard from the speakers. Various teams are involved to manage any disaster and plan accordingly. I've learned that in last 2 years during COVID situation, that all types of crimes are reduced except cybercrime, rightly mentioned. This has increased exponentially. When I say exponentially, means around 700 to 800%. So let us try to equip ourselves to learn more on cyber resilience and reduce cyber incidents to save ourselves and the world. We have heard both the speakers today on business resilience topic. I really thank Mr. Dhirendra Kumar and Mr. Karan Chawla for sharing their views, ideas, and inputs. I'm sure people watching this video would like this session. Thank you for hearing me out. Over to you, Jatin.
Well, thank you so much, Praveen ji, and thank you so much, Sandeep ji, for moderating today's session. And once again, thank you so much, Mr. Dhirendra Kumar. We look forward to have more sessions like these. Till then, please take care, have a good day, and keep yourselves safe and healthy. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.